Hi, it's Penny here, and today we're going to be talking about all the book series that I have in progress. So recently I did a video about all the book series I've completed. That one was very satisfying. This one is a little bit terrifying because I have over 50 book series to talk about, and usually I would break this into multiple videos, but for some reason I've decided let's just do it all in one. But I'll try to be concise so this video doesn't get too long. So let's start with all the book series that I'm kind of actively in progress. These are all book series that I'm planning to read books from in the next month or two. So firstly, the Locked Tomb series by Tamsin Muir. I am currently in the middle of the third book, Nona the Ninth. So this series basically starts with Gideon and Harrow going to a bit of a necromancy competition that also turns into a bit of a murder mystery, and slowly throughout the series we are unraveling the mysteries of necromancy and the world that these women are living in, as well as their own personal struggles. I only have about half or less than half of Nona left to read, and then I will be caught up on the series and I will join everyone else with waiting for the fourth book, Alecto the Ninth. Then we have the Rampart trilogy by M.R. Carey. So this is like a post-apocalyptic world where the trees are now incredibly dangerous, and as a result humans are living in these like isolated villages. But they do also have a few like remaining pieces of technology around that they completely misunderstand, and we're mainly following a young boy named Coley as he's tested to see whether he can wake the technology, because people who can wake the technology in this world are quite important and powerful. And then we're basically following Coley's journey as he learns more about this technology and the world around him. And I'm hoping to read the final book in the trilogy, The Fall of Coley, later this month, so I should be finished with this series soon. Then we have the Edge novels by Ilona Andrews. Ilona Andrews is going to come up on this list a lot. But the Edge novels is a 4-book series, or at least 4 books so far. I don't think I'll know until I get to the end of the 4th book whether I think this series is properly finished or not. I couldn't tell from the information I could find online. But basically this is a world where we have the broken, which is our world, and there's no magic. We also have the weird, where there's a lot of magic, and in between is this dimension called the Edge, where only certain people can kind of access this place, and it's like the bridge between the two other worlds, and there's just a little bit of magic in the Edge. These are kind of paranormal romance type stories, so each book follows a different couple as they come together, but there's also kind of like a bigger plot line about the magic and a few different powerful organizations that these couples are forced to be involved with. I'm trying to keep this concise, and it's really difficult when some of these series have a lot of complexity to them. But anyway, I also just have the last book. Oh, I have it somewhere here. Steel's Edge. I'm going to be reading this hopefully next week on audiobook. Hopefully. And then I'll be caught up on the series and I can decide whether I think I'm finished with the series or whether there's going to be more. Then we have the Dreamblood duology by N.K. Jemisin. So in this world, the religion is all based around this moon goddess who's also a dream goddess. And we have these priests that will gather people at the end of their lives, either because these people are ready to die and have made that decision themselves, or because the priesthood has determined that these people are corrupt and are too dangerous to be left in the world. So these gatherers will come and gather their dream blood as they end these people's lives, and then that dream blood can be used for like magical purposes like healing people, which seems good, but there's quite a lot of corruption going on within the system. And we're following a couple of gatherers as they learn about this, as well as this woman from another neighboring kingdom that perhaps is soon going to be at war with the original place that I was talking about. So I'm about 20 minutes from the end of the first audiobook, and then I will move on to the second one maybe next month. Then we have the Imperial Ridge trilogy by Ann Leckie. So in this we are following an AI spaceship that inhabits the bodies of multiple people, and they're also part of this big empire that's like colonizing the universe. In the first book, Ancillary Justice, we're getting the Justice of Turin, the spaceship, telling their story about a particular planet colonization that went badly, and then also 2,000 years in the future when this AI spaceship is no longer a spaceship, they're now just a single body, and they're bent on getting revenge for whatever happened, and you're kind of learning what that is. I have actually finished the original trilogy now, but there is also a couple of like spin-off books in the series. Firstly, Provenance, which is actually the whole reason why I picked this series up in the first place, because I got this arc from like a little library. And I think that this, I just looked in it and saw some names that I'm very excited about actually. There's this, and then also Translation State, which I think should have a lot of the aliens that this empire has encountered that I love. Actually, I'm loving this whole series. Even Ancillary Mercy, that was a little bit disappointing, loving it. I am talking too much about this one, but I really do love it. So I'll try and finish those next couple of spin-off books in the maybe they're going to take me a few months. We'll see. Then as well, we have the Rhyria series by Michael J. Sullivan. I've only just started this and read the first book, Theft of Swords. In this original series, we're following Royce and Hadrian, who are thieves, but they keep getting involved in these thieving jobs that seem like they're going to be easy, but actually pull them into like the politics and the magic of the world. And we're slowly learning about the magic and the history of the world. There's actually a lot of books in this full series because it's made up of multiple other series. So there's a lot I don't know about this series yet, but I'm excited to learn about it. I did actually pick this series up at the moment because Joshana is doing a reread of the series or a read along of the series. I'm reading it out of order to what she recommends. Maybe I'll regret it. I guess we'll see, but I'm loving the series so far. I've got a long way to go though. Okay, then we have the Whetū Toa series by Steph Mataku. So this is kind of a children's book series by a New Zealand author, and it has like cute pictures all the way through it. You probably can't see any of those. Just fairly basic pictures, but it's also a really hilarious series. Whetū Toa is this girl and she goes to live with this magician because her mum is going to act as like the personal assistant of this magician because his life is like out of control. And then Whetū Toa gets involved with looking after the farm animals in this magician's like farm place. The second book, actually, Whetū Toa and the Hunt for Ramses, involved Whetū Toa chasing this ram, this golden ram, through like alternate realities, and I really loved it. There has been a third book released in this, and I've been on hold with my library for it for a long time. They're still saying it's on order, and I'm thinking that if it doesn't come through soon, I'm just going to buy myself the third book because I do have the first two books, and I'm about to like unban myself from buying new books now that we're like settled properly in my new house, so it might be time to buy the third book and just read it. Then we have Witch Hat Atelier by Kamome Shirahama. So this is a manga story about these cute little girls learning magic that is like a drawing based magic, and there's like a darker theme going on around maybe some dark magicians or dark witches influencing what's happening with the magic. Honestly, I'm only on volume 4, so there's a lot I don't know yet, and I'm a little bit frustrated that I don't know it yet, but I maybe will get some more time for this book series soon. It is super cute, but I think I want more than cuteness a little bit. And I think so far 13 volumes of this manga have been released, but I don't know kind of how far it is from the end. No idea. But honestly, it doesn't take that long to read a single volume, so I should really just sit down and like binge through the whole thing. And then I would know. And then I'd be caught up. But who knows when I'll get the time. Then we also have the Inheritance Trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. I have the first two books in matching editions that I got from Free Little Libraries. Always impressive when you can get matching editions for free. But I don't have the third book. And this one actually has horrible stickers all stuck on the front. So we'll see when I read this how much I love it, whether I need to improve the copies I have. This series though, I haven't actually started this yet, but I'm going to say that it's a series in progress because I have put this first book on my TBR multiple times, and it's on my TBR for this month. So if I don't read it this month, I don't know what I'm doing. I really do want to get to this, and I did try the first chapter of this a while ago, and the longer and longer it takes me to get to this, the more and more I forget what it's even about. Something about a young girl whose mother maybe is related to the palace where the lives of gods and mortals intertwine, and she doesn't really want to have anything to do with this world, but her grandfather has kind of put her in line to inherit some kind of powerful position. I don't know. It's the gods that's making me interested in this series, so hopefully I will start this soon. But like mentally, this is a series that I've already started, and I want to continue it, even though I haven't actually read it yet. I did read the first chapter. Anyway, that is every series that I'm like actively in progress. There are more books released that I haven't read yet. Then the next group of series that I have in progress is book series where I'm currently caught up, but there's new books coming out this year, and so I need to be ready for when those come out. And I've just realized I had one book slightly on the wrong list, but it's kind of debatable. So that is the Gentleman Bastard series by Scott Lynch. So starting with The Lies of Locke Lamora, then Red Seas Under Red Skies, which I don't own, and then The Republic of Thieves. So it has been a long time since The Republic of Thieves was released. 2013. The fourth book is who knows where, who knows when we're going to get it. However, there has been released already, I think, another short story in this world, which I haven't read. So I guess I'm not really caught up on this. It's kind of releasing this year, but I think it's already released. So I probably need to get to that. If you haven't heard about The Lies of Locke Lamora, it is about this guy called Locke Lamora and his band of con artists as they try and pull off a big con, and then it kind of, again, expands from there. I guess you could say like the Rhyria Chronicles. We have these con artists and thieves who get involved in kind of the magic of the world, the politics and the magic of the world. And maybe in some ways actually a little bit similar in tone. Anyway, I'm glad we're getting a short story in this world, even though I'm also sad that once I've read that, I'll be caught up again, and who knows how long it will be till we get the next book. Okay, then also releasing this year, we have the Library Trilogy by Mark Lawrence. This started with the book that broke the world, the book that wouldn't burn. Anyway, I'll put the series pictures here. The latest book is coming out. I'm not going to tell you when. I already did a video about all my anticipated releases for the year, and all of these were on this. But the latest book is coming out. So this is about this young girl who lives out in the desert and has big dreams of going to the city. She does end up getting to the city through unexpected adventures, and there she gets to explore this magical library. Also in this magical library is this boy whose siblings, although they're not really his siblings, more like adopted siblings, they have always lived in the library. They're kind of trapped in this single chamber, and eventually they end up meeting. There's a lot in this series about the cycles of civilization and different racial conflicts, and I guess the power of knowledge. It's a really interesting series. I haven't liked some of the execution, but other parts I've really loved, and the overall ideas are amazing. So I'm looking forward to that last book. Am I getting through these fast enough? I think so. Okay, then next we have the Lady Astronaut series by Mary Robinette Kowal. So this is a alternate history, I guess, where, like, I think in the 50s, a meteor hit the Earth and basically set events in place where the Earth is no longer going to be habitable. And so they've kind of had to hurry up the space program to try and find a way for humans to live off the Earth. So in the first book and the second book, we're following this particular lady astronaut. There's a lot of themes in here around feminism and racism and anxiety. This third book actually follows the wife of a politician who is also involved in the space program, but the colony on the moon was being sabotaged. A lot of interesting themes in there, especially because it somewhat aligns with real life events. There's also a polio outbreak in this, and it does talk a little bit about vaccines and anti-vax sentiment alongside this sabotage of the moon, because a lot of people think they shouldn't be spending so much money on exploring space. They should be fixing Earth, even though, is that possible? Probably not. The fourth book is coming out soon. It's called The Martian Contingency. I think maybe we're going back to the original astronaut and she's going to be on Mars, but I could be wrong. Then we have The Burning by Evan Winter. So this is a series where certain women in this area or amongst these people have magical abilities, and some of them can use that to call dragons. To be honest, I'm hoping the next book will do more with that. There was a little bit more of it in the second book. Definitely not enough in the first book. The first book we focused on this young boy named Tao who was out for revenge and just kind of spent a lot of the book leveling up and being very angry. But there's definitely a lot of interesting things in the world and interesting ideas. It's hard to talk about any of them without spoilers. And I also think it's been a while since I read these now, so I'm probably due a reread whenever the next book comes out. It's listed as coming out this year, but also there's no cover yet, so we'll see if it really happens because it has been pushed back a couple of years at this point. Oh, then I have Monstrous by Sana Takeda and Marjorie Liu, and you know, this should actually be on the section of the list about series I'm actively in progress with, because I just got volume 9 from the library. Even though it was released in like November last year, it always takes a while for my library to get these through, and even then only in ebook form. Like, it takes even longer to get the physical copies. So this is a series about this young woman named Micah who basically has this demon inside her that sometimes like comes out, maybe eats people, and they're kind of in the middle of this bigger conflict between these different races. We have the ancients, who are like animal gods, and then we have the humans and the witches, and kind of in between we also have the Arcanics, who are half human, half ancients. We also have magical cats with like necromancy powers, and like the more tails they have, the more magic they have. It's quite dark, but I am really loving the series. Admittedly, volume 8, which was the last one I read, wasn't my favorite. I'm really hoping that volume 9 is going to get back to what I loved about the series. And I have it in my Libby app just waiting for me to find some time to read it, which I really need to do soon. But also, I expect in November this year we'll get another volume, so there'll be that to read as well. Also from Sana Takeda and Marjorie Liu, I have been reading the graphic novel series The Night Eaters. This is a story about these young people. It kind of started during COVID, which is interesting as we get further and further away from COVID, but their parents came over from, I want to say Hong Kong, but I always forget, to help them run their restaurant. And then their mother is like, wow, you guys are really weak, and decides to train them in things that are maybe a little bit supernatural and quite dark. So we should be getting the 3rd volume of that this year. Also Vita Nostra, which I absolutely loved. The 3rd novel in that is being translated to English this year. So this is a story about this young woman who ends up at this school where it's not really clear what they're learning. The lessons are very strange, and when they do badly, there are serious consequences for their family. It gets very abstract and weird, and it kind of becomes like a journey of transformation for our main character. Love the first book. The second one wasn't quite as good, but it was still very good, and I cannot wait for the 3rd one. There will also be another book coming out in the Amina Al-Sarafi series, The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi, which is like a pirate fantasy novel where this older pirate who's kind of retired ends up getting pulled back into one last quest and having to kind of bring her crew back together to go on an adventure. So I've read the first book. 2nd book comes out this year. Then as well, I didn't actually mention this in my anticipated releases video, but When Among Crows by Veronica Roth is getting a sequel called Cursebearer. So this was about it's kind of an urban fantasy with Polish mythology inspiration, with some really beautiful writing as well as some interesting character emotions. They're quite short books, so I think you're really best to go into those without knowing much and just like go on the journey. Actually, is there a page count for the 2nd book? Oh, you know that the series is called Cursebearer. The 2nd book is called To Clutch a Razor. It's going to be 240 pages, so again, pretty short, but I think the covers are actually pretty representative of the inside, like they're beautiful books. Then as well, we have the sequel to Witch King by Martha Wells. So Martha Wells being the author of the Murderbot series, although this series is very different. In Witch King, we're following this demon who wakes up and discovers that he's now in a different body from his last memory, and he has to try and track down what happened to his previous body. Was he betrayed? And we're also kind of getting his backstory about his initial kind of introduction to the human world and the conflict he got involved with then and how that kind of influences events. I had some problems with the first book, but I'm really hopeful for the 2nd book, Queen Demon. Then as well, some series that I expect to be continuing and in progress for a long time. The graphic novel adaptations of The Babysitter's Club and The Babysitter's Club Little Sister. So the Babysitter's Club books were books that I read when I was young, and I love them. So foundational to everything about who I am as a person. I learned so much as a kid from these books, and they've been adapting them to graphic novels, so I've been rereading them. Obviously, I'm not learning as much from them now that I'm a 40-year-old woman, but I'm still having a fun, nostalgic time reading them. And like, the original Babysitter's Club and Little Sister series are like 100 plus books long. So I really don't know, like, are they going to end up doing the graphic novel adaptations for all of those? I don't know, but I'll probably read all of them until whatever happens, happens. Okay, then the next kind of section I have is book series where I'm caught up on the series, but there are no books released yet, and I don't know when the next books are going to come out. Doesn't seem like it's going to be this year. Let's start with the obvious ones. Firstly, A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. I'm not even going to give you a synopsis. Epic fantasy, dragons, magic, betrayal, politics. This is another one where I probably need a reread, but I won't be doing it until Winds of Winter is properly announced. Then as well, we have Name of the Wind, or The Kingkiller Chronicles by Patrick Rothfuss. This series is another one where we've been waiting a really long time for the third book. Will it ever come out? Maybe not, but I will be waiting. And once again, I'll also do a reread of this series whenever that third book is like properly announced, but it's going to need to be like a really solid announcement for me to know that it's real at this point. And I'm not going to give a synopsis of this one either, because at this point I honestly can't even recommend people to read that book series because there's just too many questions left open after that second book. Then as well, we have The Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. I have a whole shelf here dedicated to the series, and I'm missing a few books, but most of the book series is here. It's a really long one. Robin Hobb has said that she's writing another book or another trilogy maybe in this series. It's still definitely up in the air when we will get that, but she's working on it, so fingers crossed. And again, I'm not talking about this series because it's so well known and I've talked about it a million times, and so have many other people. Probably the same is true of The First Law World by Joe Abercrombie. I have the weirdest, I just have the third book from the first trilogy and then the first book from the last trilogy in that series, but it is actually a much bigger series. It's kind of like a grimdark fantasy. Actually, this is another series where it's so well known. All you really need to know is grimdark fantasy with really great writing, really great dark humor, and great characters. Joe Abercrombie has said that he is going to write more in this world, so it's coming at some point. We also have The Stormlight Archives by Brandon Sanderson. These are all the really well-known ones. I have The Stormlight Archives here. So Wind and Truth was the last book in this arc, but there is going to be another 5 books in this series. And there's also going to be some series in between the Ghostblood series, something else. Anyway, I think you can probably treat the Ghostblood series as kind of a part of the Stormlight Archives, so don't be too sad about Era 2 or the second part of Stormlight Archives being too far away, because I think you'll get a lot of similar things, or at least a lot of crossover with the Ghostbloods trilogy whenever that comes out. Anyway, while we're talking about Brandon Sanderson, The Rhythmatist. This is a series he started a really long time ago where the magic is all based around chalk drawings, and we're following this young boy who really wants to be able to do this magic, but unfortunately doesn't have the ability. But because his mother works at the school, he gets to go to the school. He just can't do the magic. It was a really great series, a really great setup, and Brandon's never gotten back to it. I would like him to do so. And I know he has a plan to, but I'm worried that it's just going to keep getting pushed aside in preference of other things that people are a lot more keen on, because Rhythmatist is kind of a middle grade series. But anyway, I'll still live in hope. Also, Brandon Sanderson, I have a question mark on my list here, is the Dark One series. So there was a graphic novel called Dark One that Brandon wrote, and then there was also like a spin-off connected story, Dark One Forgotten, that I really liked. And then I think he's rewriting the graphic novel as a book, and that maybe there's going to be more in that world. I'm not really that clear on what's going on with the series, but it's definitely still a series that I have floating around as like, maybe I need to do something more with it at some point. And honestly, it's been so long since I read the graphic novel that I've kind of forgotten it. But it's kind of a portal fantasy where there is this magical world connected to our one and has some kind of influence on our world. I did really like the audiobook spin-off thing, Dark One Forgotten. It's kind of written in podcast style, and it's about these characters discovering that a bunch of their memories have been affected and people have been completely forgotten. Then we also have The Sixth World by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is one where I'm thinking that soon I might have to move it into the next section of these series, which is ones where maybe they're never going to be finished, but I'm still hopeful for Sixth World. This is kind of another urban fantasy, or like a post-apocalyptic fantasy, where it seems like most of the survivors are just people who were living on these like Native American reservations, and now the gods are kind of back influencing the world, and we're following this woman who has like the magical powers are like inherited through their ancestry. So she has these two particular powers that are very powerful, especially when brought together. Do you know, this is another series where I've kind of forgotten a lot of stuff, but I know I loved it and I would really like some more books in this series. Unfortunately, Rebecca Roanhorse went off and focused on the Between Earth and Sky series instead, and everything I've seen says that she's not going to come back to Sixth World, but I'm still hopeful. Then we also have the Murderbot series by Martha Wells. So this is another really popular one following this security bot who has like hacked their programming so that they can watch TV, which is what they'd much rather be doing. But unfortunately they do still also need to do their job as security, and they kind of learn throughout the series that maybe they do enjoy looking after humans. Maybe what they don't really like about humans is the emotions and like having to talk to them. It's a very relatable series, even though Murderbot is very unhuman at the same time. And I really love some of the ideas around the bots and the AI characters. And there are meant to be more books coming in this series soon. Hopefully soon. I don't know when, but hopefully soon. Then we also have the Bobiverse series by Dennis E. Taylor. So this is about this software engineer who arranged that when he died he would be frozen. When he wakes up though, after dying and being frozen, he is now in the brain of a self-replicating spaceship, and we're just following his adventures, or like all of his adventures, because he then replicates himself, and we now have multiple spaceships with Bob, which is the name of the guy, Bob in their brain, and they're just like spreading out across the universe, exploring, having adventures, solving problems. There's a lot of problem solving in these books, a lot of like nerd humor. They're a lot of fun, and I think we'll get another book in this series maybe next year. So I'm looking forward to that. Then we have the Tiger and Dell series by Jennifer Roberson. So this is a series that I actually read, I think, in my late teens, early 20s. I have the main series up here, but I was too lazy to get it down. This is the more recently released 7th book in the series. Oh, this was 2013. That's still ages ago. But there was another book released after this that I've also read. And in the notes on that, she said she probably will write more books in the world. So we'll see. Mainly we're following Tiger and Dell. They are sword dancers. Tiger is from the south, where there's a big desert, and he's fairly sexist in the beginning. Then Dell turns up from the north, where it's all snowy and icy, and asks him for help. But she's also a badass and schools him that maybe he shouldn't be such a sexist dickhead, while they go on this adventure to kind of try and save her brother. And then, I mean, this is a big long series, so a lot of stuff happens. I didn't necessarily like the later books as much, but because this is a series that I started in my teens and early 20s, I'll probably continue it if more books come out. Okay, next on my list I have the Alchemical Journeys series by Sean M. McGuire. Honestly, I don't know if I'm going to continue this series. Maybe it shouldn't be on the list. The first book, Middle Game, I loved it. We're introduced to these two characters, Roger and Dodger, who are twins who are kind of separated at birth. And these alchemists are basically manipulating them to try and make them into gods, so that then these alchemists can have control of gods. And that first book is amazing. Such an emotional journey. The second book though, we're following, I've forgotten their names. And honestly, who cares? Because I hated that second book. We're following a couple of characters who are like the avatars of summer and winter, I think. And then I also read the third book, which was about moon gods. There is a fourth book announced. I think maybe it's even coming out this year. I don't know. I've kind of decided not to continue the series, but I obviously haven't decided that enough to actually take it off the list. So, I don't know. Then we also have the Villains series by V. Schwab. So the first book was Vicious, which is about Eli and Victor, who, when they were in school, were investigating extraordinaries, which are people who have these kind of like superpowers. And then we're also getting another timeline where now they're older and they're out to kill each other, and we're learning about that. The second book was kind of their story continued, but also we got some new women introduced. I really loved them, and I hated that Victor and Eli's story was continued because I would have just preferred to get these women's story. So there is going to be a third book in the series. That's what Victoria's always planned. I think the third book is going to be called Victorious. Has Victoria Schwab just named that last book after herself? Anyway, I know a lot of people who love this first book will be wanting more of Victor and Eli's story. I would really just like a bunch of badass women with cool magical powers, like tearing the world down and destroying a bunch of terrible men. That's what I would like. Maybe I won't get it. We'll see. Then we also have the Alex Stern series, or Galaxy Stern, by Leigh Bardugo. I did just see earlier today Leigh Bardugo saying we'll get an announcement on that third book soon, so maybe then we'll know when it's coming. But we follow this girl named Alex, or actually Galaxy, but Alex for short, and she has the ability to see ghosts, and because of that she's got in this position at, I never remember which university it is, but anyway, some prestigious university with a lot of history, got a job there and like a studying position there, mainly because she can see ghosts, and she's meant to use her abilities to like oversee the 9 houses at this university that are kind of like secret societies doing magic. But in the first book we learned that Alex's supervisor has gone missing, and we're kind of discovering what happened there, and then it gets dark, but maybe not dark enough for me. I wasn't in love with the second book, but I think by the time the third book comes out I may have forgotten enough that I'll still want to pick up that third book. Then next we have the rare non-fantasy series on this list, and that is the Truly Devious series by Maureen Johnson. I think the 6th book is the one we're waiting for. So this is following Stevie Bell, who wants to become a detective. She gets to go to this special boarding school where 50 years ago maybe there was a murder at the school, so she's going to investigate that murder as part of her special project. But then while she's there, there's also a new murder happening at the school, and so she's trying to investigate both those mysteries. So the first trilogy in the series was about that. Then there's been a couple of standalone mysteries that she's been solving. There was a like personal cliffhanger related to Stevie at the end of the 5th book, so now I really need that 6th book. But also these books are just like really fun mysteries, and even though I often don't like YA books, I am not the target market for this series, but I still find them a lot of fun. And talking about a lot of fun, the next couple of series are really cutesy ones. So we have Cucumber Quest by DDGG. Maybe I should have moved this to the maybe section of the list. And actually, maybe I should also check that we haven't got more. So this is like a webcomic following, there's not more. Basically following this cute rabbit, and his father is really insistent that he needs to go on this adventure, even though he really just wants to go to magic school and learn magic so that he can help people, and his sister would much prefer to go on the adventure. But they kind of end up going on an adventure together, and I love the humor of it. I love the art of it. It's so great. Unfortunately, it's been on hiatus since 2019, but I'm hoping one day we can get back to it. And actually, for my personal stress levels, maybe I'll just reread it for fun. Then we also have the Lightfall series by Tim Probert. So these are the first 2 books, and then there's also been a 3rd book released, and I don't know when we're getting the 4th book, but I will wait. This is just a really cute, well-drawn graphic novel series following this young girl named Bee, and she is kind of teamed up with this Galdurian, and Galdurian, yeah, he is the last of his kind as far as he knows, and they are going to try and find her pig wizard adopted grandfather, and that kind of leads them to get into a much bigger adventure. It's really cute, but also a little bit dark. It always reminds me of The Dark Crystal in terms of vibes. I will admit I like the first volume the most, but I'm still loving the series enough that I'm excited for whenever we get the next volume. Okay, then the next 5 series on the list are all series by Ilona Andrews. Firstly, the Hidden Legacy series. This is like this urban fantasy set in this world where magical abilities are genetic and the houses with the strongest magic have a lot of political power, but primarily we're following this particular family where they work as like private investigators. In the beginning they're just trying to pay the bills, but they do kind of slowly develop their magical abilities and gain a lot more of a political position in the world. So there's already been 2 trilogies released in this series, the first one following the older sister, the second one following the middle sister. The older sister can tell whether people are lying or not, and then the middle sister can make people fall in love with her. The third sister is kind of able to transform herself, and there's supposed to be some books following her, and like these are again like kind of paranormal romance stories, as well as having some interesting magical murder mystery plot lines. So it's already been set up who the love interest is going to be for the third sister, and I'm super excited whenever we get it. But I'm also waiting for more from the Innkeeper Chronicles by Ilona Andrews. So this is kind of like a paranormal romance but with aliens. So the idea is that in this world any supernatural creatures are actually aliens, because it turns out Earth is kind of like in the middle of this transportation hub for the universe, and whenever aliens are passing through they stay at these inns, and there's like a treaty in place to mean that they can't let the general population know of their existence, so they stay at these inns, and we're following an innkeeper who basically is just trying to get her inn up and running, at the same time as trying to track down what happened to her parents who were also innkeepers and went missing. So once again, I don't know when we'll get more from the series, but I'm ready for it whenever it's ready. So then we have the Kate Daniels series. So this was my first love in terms of Ilona Andrews books. Kate Daniels is a mercenary in this world where magic has started to come back into the world, but it's come back in waves. So sometimes magic will work and then other times technology will work, but never both of them. And it can change at unexpected times sometimes. And there's also shapeshifters and vampires and a lot of the traditional supernatural creatures. I really love how this world weaves in different mythologies from around the world. So the original 10 book series of the Kate Daniels series is finished. However, there have been a couple of novellas following Kate released, and I believe there's going to be more. So this series is called the Wilmington Years, when they've moved out of Atlanta into Wilmington, wherever that is. So I've seen Ilona Andrews talking about at least one more novella in this kind of timeline. As well, there is a spin-off series from the Kate Daniels world following Hugh, who was kind of a bad guy, in the Kate Daniels world, and then he's gone off to have his own adventures in this new book series. It was started a long time ago, and this is the series actually that they're going to finish next, or release another book in next. And this is really kind of a forced marriage, enemies to lovers kind of romance. I didn't necessarily love that aspect of it, but I did like the fantasy story, so I'm excited to finally get another book in this series. And then as well, we have the Aurelia Ryder series, also set in the Kate Daniels world. So this is following Kate Daniels' adopted daughter as she develops her own magical abilities. So this they released kind of during COVID time, and they thought it was an appropriate story for the time, but they have said that they can't really finish this series until they've written more books from the other 2 previous series that I mentioned. So it might be a while till they get back to this one. And honestly though, when I look at all the Ilona Andrews series that I'm waiting for more from, it's actually maybe this one that I'm the most excited for. And then maybe the Wilmington Years, because I do love Kate. Okay, then lastly we have the section of book series where I don't think there's gonna be more books in the series, but I kind of hope I'm wrong. Firstly, we have the Monk and Robot series by Becky Chambers. So this, we're following this tea monk who goes out into the wild because they just feel like they're not getting what they want from life. And while they're there, they run into this robot, Mosscap. Mosscap has been sent as a representative from the robots to find out how the humans are doing. Because in this world, basically, the robots just said, we're going to go into the forest and we don't really want to talk to humans anymore, so if you could not contact us, that would be cool. And the humans said, okay and have kind of had to learn to live without robots. I want to say without technology, but there's definitely some technology still. But it's a lot more of an environmentally friendly kind of utopian world. Mostly these books are kind of just Moscap and sibling Dex trying to decide what they want from the world or what they need from the world. These were really lovely stories, and as far as I can tell, there's no plan to write more books in the series, but I hope I'm wrong, because I would love more. Another series that I would love more of is what is that series called? It does have a name. The Unseen World. So the first book being An Unkindness of Magicians, and then the second book, A Sleight of Shadows. So the first book was kind of this magical tournament. So it turns out there's like this underground secret society of magic users, and every so often there is a competition to decide which family or which house will be like the leaders of this underground society. And we follow a bunch of different characters who are competing in this competition. Primarily Sydney, who has a plan to kind of like completely change the way that power works in this society. So again, I have no reason to believe that there should be more books in this series, but like, maybe there will be. There's definitely room for more story. Do you know, as I'm going through this list, I'm just checking that there aren't more in hope that I'm wrong. So the next series is the Rolling in the Deep series by Mara Grant. Honestly, this isn't really a series, it's just Into the Drowning Deep by Mara Grant, but there was also kind of a story published earlier set in the same world. So in this, basically this ship went out to look for mermaids in the middle of the ocean, and the only thing that came back was footage of them like being destroyed, eaten, attacked by mermaids, vicious mermaids, and everyone kind of thinks it's a hoax, but the company that sent them out is like, no, it wasn't. So now they're sending out another expedition to find out what happened. And there's mermaids, like horrible, awful, scary mermaids. And Mara Grant is actually Shawnee Maguire, and she said if there was enough sales of this book, she would write more in the world. I guess there hasn't been, because there hasn't been. But I just keep it floating around as a maybe one day. Then as well, we have The Books of the Fairy by Maggie Stiefvater. I think Lament was first, and then Ballad. There was meant to be a third book. This is following this young girl who's very musically talented, who gets involved with the fairy, who are very like drawn by her magical ability. And then the second book kind of follows her best friend, who had a crush on her, but she got stolen away by this fairy guy, so he has had to go to this other music school and kind of come up with a different plan, but he's also very musically talented, so ends up getting involved with the fairy. And then the plan was for the third book, I think, to follow the boyfriend of this girl, but Maggie Stiefvater has said that she wrote the series or started the series so long ago, and her writing style has changed so much since then that she wouldn't even know how to write the third book in this series now. So it's probably never happening. But like, wouldn't it be cool if it did? Even though these are like YA fantasy romance kind of stories, like a little bit like Twilight, but with music and fairies. So like, once again, I'm not the target market, but like still, wouldn't it be good? I want it. I want it anyway. Then we have the Cassidy Blake series by Victoria Schwab. So this is a middle grade series about this young girl who can see ghosts, and her parents don't know she can see ghosts, but they're also like ghost hunters, and they like film this TV show where they go to different haunted places and like film a documentary around it. And so she's going to each of these haunted places as well, and like interacting with the actual ghosts. And there were 3 books released in this series. And when I read the third book, I didn't know it was the last book, and it didn't feel like the last book to me. There's definitely still a lot of scope for more stories for Cassidy to go and meet more ghosts. And so once again, I'm just in denial that that was the end of the series. Then lastly, I have 3 graphic novel series. Firstly, we have The Highest House by Mike Carey. So as far as graphic novels goes, this is the most complete fantasy world and fantasy story that I've ever read. We're kind of following this young slave boy who integrates into this powerful house, the highest house, but also kind of has a connection to this dark creature that lives underneath. And at the end of the book, it said, end of part 1. If there is a part 1, there should be a part 2, right? Like, even though it was a complete story on its own, I'm sure at that point there was a plan for part 2. As far as I can tell, there is no longer a plan for part 2. but I would like it. Okay, then we also have Bug Boys by Laura Knetzer. So this is just about these two super cute bugs, Rhino Bee and Stag Bee, going on super cute, super wholesome adventures. The art is really bright and colourful. There's some good lessons. It's just a great time all around if you want a happy story with like no stress. Then we also have Unfamiliar by Hayley Newsome. So this is just a story about these super cute witches having witchy adventures, but also kind of struggling with their magical abilities and their friendships, and they just find solace in each other. It's again super relatable, super cute. Had a great time with it. I didn't like volume 2 as much, and I'm just remembering that this is a webcomic. Maybe there's more in the webcomic? No, it looks like there hasn't been any more since 2022. Oh well, anyway. That is also on my list of series that, like, probably there won't be any more, but I will just keep hoping. I'm not willing to remove it from the list and say definitely done. So if my numbers are right, that was 51 series that I've mentioned there. That's a lot, but a lot of these we're just waiting, and there probably won't be more of them anytime soon. But that's a lot of like fantasy series to just be sitting in my brain waiting to continue. But I'm not necessarily mad about having all these fantasy worlds in my head. Let me know, do you know how many book series you have in progress? I used to not know, and then I did the numbers and realized it was a lot and decided to try and get it under control. And this is me having it under control. Anyway, chat with me down in the comments. Do subscribe if you'd like to see more of my bookish videos. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.